The news mill is on full spin this week, with Sony announcing that they won't be at E3 next year. Microsoft puts 2 more game studios under their umbrella. And is Square Enix already in full swing on the next generation of consoles? The wheel of fate is turning, and just a little bit more on this week's edition of The Rundown. Just last week, in a rather bizarre livestream from Square Enix, Final Fantasy XV's director, Hajime Tabata, officially announced that he'd be resigning from Square Enix and leaving the Luminous studio behind. This being the man that brought Final Fantasy XV's 10-year development to its finish line. It was also revealed that almost all of the game's incoming DLC has been cancelled, except Episode Ardent, which features a playable sub-story about the game's main villain and his motivations. Tabata also revealed that he'd be starting up his own development studio after his departure. Again, this whole thing was quite bizarre, based on the fact that it was sort of hyped up as this major announcement, enough to make people believe that something new was about to be revealed. Usually this stuff gets released in a press statement and slowly forgotten about over time. Even more bizarre is how this announcement happened alongside the earnings call for Square, revealing that they suffered some major financial losses, partly due to Luminous Studio itself. So it leaves one to wonder just exactly what went down here, especially considering that Square was heralding Tabata as the new face for Final Fantasy and even had some projects in the works with him at the helm. I can't help but wonder what this means for the franchise now and what sort of direction the next major entry may take. Continuing the Square Enix newsreel, it was already confirmed a while back that Square was hard at work on a next generation title. A recent listing on LinkedIn spotted by a user on ResetEra confirmed this with a listing mentioning a 3D character director to work on the newly cancelled Final Fantasy XV DLC, a new mobile game for China, and a new AAA title for PlayStation 5. On top of this, it's been confirmed that this new next-gen title will also be a new IP from the publisher. This listing has since been removed. At this point, we all know the next generation of console hardware is well underway. It's only a matter of when. Considering the information on the listing itself, this must have been posted around the time where a lot of those projects had been in development, like the Final Fantasy XV multiplayer DLC Comrades. I theorize that this could mean that Square has been working on a next-gen project for the past year or so, which would definitely be pointing at a 2020 to 2021 timeframe for next-gen hardware. Rounding out our potential next-gen theories, Microsoft is on the move grabbing more game studios to put under the Xbox umbrella. Last weekend, during the XO18 event, Microsoft confirmed that they now own Obsidian Entertainment, most notably known for Fallout New Vegas and Pillars of Eternity, and In Exile Entertainment, most notably known for the Wasteland series. This now increases their development weight to 13 studios in total, which they are now claiming that they are focused on creating exclusive games that turn players into loyal Xbox fans. There's always talk that Xbox has no exclusives to compete with the likes of Sony, of whom prides itself on exclusive content and first-party and third-party games. This is a clear indication that Microsoft has acknowledged this problem and is attempting to make strides in this for the Xbox platform. The unfortunate part of all this is that this is the same song and dance that happens towards the end of every console generation since the original Xbox. And what ultimately ends up happening is that Xbox launches with a bunch of exclusives in the early term and eventually ends up with only a handful by the end of it because they've either shut down studios or have repurposed them to work on their more popular IPs. In my opinion, this is more of a I'll believe it when I see it situation. But again, this is a clear indication that the next generation race is well underway behind the scenes. Lastly, rounding off all this potential next-gen talk, this week the ESA announced that Sony will not be attending E3 2019, a first for the company in 24 years. To which Sony themselves then confirmed following this statement, saying, "As the industry evolves, Sony Interactive Entertainment continues to look for inventive opportunities to engage the community," saying that their need to innovate and think differently to delight their fans is the reason they've chosen not to participate at E3 next year. There are a number of theories and reasons why this is happening, and I'll point to a few that I've suspected may or may not have attributed to this. First, as I've mentioned in my E3 2018 prediction videos, E3 itself is slowly diving into irrelevance to game publishers everywhere. Its conception, at first, was meant for the press to get all the latest information about the newest video games and hardware, mostly to release on their respective publications, whether that be magazines, newspapers, talk shows, etc. With how much the internet has evolved over the past 2 decades, and Nintendo being the first progressive company to take advantage of it with their Nintendo Directs, it's becoming clear that other options to present the latest and greatest might be within Sony's best interest. Let's keep in mind the fact that it does cost money to set up the press conferences at E3 every year. The idea that this can be circumvented by simply announcing things on their own time through their own controlled setting outside of E3 might be more effective cost-wise and marketing-wise. My second theory is that Sony simply doesn't have enough new games or announcements to justify setting up a stage at E3 next year. When you consider the fact that they've cancelled all the remaining press events for this year, because of that reason alone, it makes a lot of sense. The Last of Us Part 2 is still in development, as is Days Gone, which are their last 2 big first-party heavy hitters. So I imagine it's all hands on deck to get those out of the door and into people's hands. And if you look at their 2018 E3 showing, let's be honest, the whole thing was kind of a train wreck. I'm sure they don't want to repeat that again. But this all leads into my last theory, next gen, or the PS5 to be precise. The fact that they don't have many new games to show this year could mean that many of their studios are hard at work on next generation titles, which they can't show yet until Sony gives the go-ahead, which could happen at their own controlled press event outside of E3. Lastly, Netflix Castlevania animated series producer Adi Shankar announces that he's also working on a new animated Devil May Cry series for Netflix as well, stating that the series will now join Castlevania into what we're now calling the bootleg multiverse. In an interview with IGN, "I've acquired the rights myself so the jabronis in Hollywood can't F this one up too," he said. Jabronis? Who the hell In all seriousness, I'm willing to give this whole thing a shot. After being pleasantly surprised with the Castlevania series and how well done the whole thing was executed in its first 2 seasons, there is an ounce of confidence that this thing can be done justice as well. And for the record, I agree with this idea of trying to keep Hollywood from getting a hold and completely ruining it. Like a certain up-and-coming Monster Hunter movie. Ugh. But, and this is just a request from me personally, more than 4 episodes in the first season this time, please? That brings us to the end of yet another edition of The Rundown. I know it's been a while since the last one of these, and I apologize for that, but a lot has been going on as of late. Most of it personal. But hopefully I can get back to doing these on the regular, assuming there's enough news to go around. But if you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to like the video or dislike if you didn't, and comment below as I'm always looking out for constructive feedback. And as always, this is Corrupt Ronan telling you to stay sharp, assassins, and I'll see you next time.